to talk about this new Supermax prison in El Salvador and what it means to your future. Um, when Donald Trump took office, some things were done. He first thing he did, he declared drug traffickers a terrorism organization, and then the second thing is he started flirting with the idea of sending Americans out of country to serve their federal sentences, which is almost unheard of, but it actually started after September 11th with Guantanamo Bay. And you see, they have to do these things in small steps because if they just come out and just started sending everyday people to El Salvador, they would have a tremendous backlash. But they did it in small steps. After 9/11, they used the terrorist attack in New York City. And I think a lot of people know it wasn't actual uh, Arabs who did this. It was Dick Cheney, George Bush, and these military industrial complex that is not made up of Jews, by the way. But the military industrial complex creates these conspiracy theories that Jews are creating all of these wars. No, the Dick Cheneys and George Bushes and that other guy that owns BlackRock, those are the people who are instigating all of this. But back to El Salvador and the future of Americans. So they're doing this in small steps. Fentanyl is now the new 9/11, and these Mexican cartels are the new cavemen, the new Afghanistan cavemen, and they following the same formula, the same script as 9/11, but they're doing it with fentanyl. And what they're going to do is now they declared cartel members as terrorist organization. Robert Rosso spoke about this. He went into great detail about this, how it's not that far of a stretch to start charging everyday Americans, drug addicts, people who are addicted to fentanyl, start charging them and trying them as a terrorist, being part of a terrorist organization, because they are purchasing these drugs that are supposedly being used to fund terrorism, which is the cartels, right? So the stepping stone is half of America is okay with this, right? They're like, okay with the idea. They think, oh, well, this is going to get the fentanyl off the street, right? We're going to have to start doing this with people. But it's actually just opening the door to where it's just a regular everyday occurrence. Uh, People like Rudy Giuliani and even Donald Trump himself may end up in El Salvador. Okay, because as you've seen before, there was a backlash to the Donald Trump presidency. Him and a lot of his cronies have felony convictions on him. This is after he threatened Hillary Clinton. He threatened to charge her, and then he didn't, and they come back and did it to him. Now he's got 4 years to kill his enemies off, because if Donald Trump does not go after his enemies like they went after him, he's done. He's done once he gets out of office. He may end up in El Salvador, and that's what happens to a lot of these people who use these policies to punish other Americans. The universe never ever forgets. It's a universal law, and it happens to them. Rudy Giuliani used RICO laws to prosecute Italian Americans. And what happened? He himself got convicted of RICO, and it never ends. Donald Trump threatened Hillary Clinton. He started reinstituting all this mass incarceration type craze. Even though he did the First Step Act, he kind of went backwards in the other direction with other things. People talked about this. They just started prosecuting other people for other things, and he turned around and he caught a felony conviction himself. So if you put out a certain energy into the universe, you will receive it back. This is a universal law. It has been proven over and over and over again by great minds. And This Supermax prison in El Salvador is no exception, and don't be surprised if the architects of this idea of sending Americans to a foreign prison, that may end up happening to them. And it has happened in other things. And it never fails. It's universal karma. It is a universal law. So I'm seeing in the future, Americans are going to be sent to El Salvador and other nations to serve federal sentences. It will be everyday Americans who get caught with small amounts of drugs. They will be branded as terrorists and put into these centers, and then gun owners are next, and people who are sympathetic to the January 6th crowd is next, and eventually white people themselves are going to end up in these centers, these terrorist centers, because it's not that far of a stretch to say that a white supremacist is a terrorist. Anyone who is opposed to multiculturalism will be branded as a terrorist. They already have. And they will be sent to places like El Salvador to serve their time for civil rights violations. This is not that far of a stretch for them to do. You've seen what happened after 9/11. You've seen how 9/11 completely transformed the landscape in America. And they don't need warrants anymore to read your emails and track you. And this is just going to continue. The erosion of civil liberties will continue. But I got good advice for you. If you're emotionally wrapped up into this, if you're an American patriot, a Walmart patriot who is ready to bleed and die for the U.S. Constitution, I can assure you, you are following a false god. You need to ditch this idea. The U.S. Constitution is dead. The American dream is dead. You're seeing it killed right before your eyes. And it's a message to your soul. You should be serving God and not country. Serve God and not man. Serve God and not government. And that very phrase that I just spoke will soon be used to classify people as terrorists, anti-government terrorists who choose God over government. That is bad for the state. But I assure you, if you're going to bleed and die for something, it should be for God. And stop becoming emotionally upset over the erosion of civil liberties. Okay? Stop following these false gods and start serving the true God. And God has said, and he has spoken to his closest souls throughout the years, that multiculturalism does not work, and it is an evil practice. And that goes back to the Tower of Babel. So this new idea of America having this strong government that overly prosecutes people who serve God over government, who falsely brands people as terrorists for picking God over government, you are certainly serving a false god by doing this, and you're wasting your life. You're throwing away your soul. You should expect this. Like, yes, of course they're going to send American citizens to El Salvador. Of course, they're going to have this idea that multiculturalism is the future. And if you're opposed to multiculturalism, you will be branded as a racist terrorist and you will be sent to a Supermax prison in El Salvador. That is coming. You should expect that. You should expect that. You've been seeing the country go in this direction for the past, 4 decades now? It should not upset you anymore. You should accept this. Let the idea of America go and embrace God and the words of God and the lessons he taught us through the Tower of Babel. Multiculturalism is evil. It is a destroyer of cultures, and it is ungodly. And we are now living under a government that is ready to brand you as a terrorist for speaking these words of God, and they are ready to send you to a Supermax prison in El Salvador if you do this. And that by itself should be a reason to stop serving government and start serving God. So